Shalom.
Good morning. Pleasure to be with you here at Temple Beth Sholom, Las Vegas. It's wonderful to see some of your faces. Haven't seen your faces in so long. I'm sorry you have to look at ours. We're going to begin. Mama says we have a face for radio.
I think so.
We're going to begin our service on page 103. If you're able to do so, please rise for Birchot HaShachar.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lezek vivina lehafkim ben yom uben layla.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shasani betzalmo. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shasani ben chorin. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shasani Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam pokeach ivrim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam mabisharumim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Matir Asurim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Zokef Kefufim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Rogar Zal Hamayim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Hamechem Tzedek Aver. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Shasali Kortz Orki. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Ozer Yisrael B'Gvura. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Oter Yisrael B'Tifara. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Noten Layef Koah.
Amen. Please be seated.
Baruch atah Adonai melech haolam v'shanna v'yirasam v'fanecha Adonai l'Elohei Avoteinu Yisrael. Utenenu hayom uv'chol yom lechein ul hesed rachamim beinecha uvenei koroenu v'tzigmin ul hasadim tovim. Baruch atah Adonai gomel chasadim tovim le'amo Yisrael. Le'olam yedeh al hashamayim. Ribon kol alamim lazar niteinu masmon. Ashreinu matav chalkeinu umanayim goraleinu v'fayiru shetenu. Ashreinu she'anaknu mashkimu umarivim erev avoker ve'omrim pa'amayim b'kol yom Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Atah v'shalom nevracha olam. Kadesh et shimcha v'kadesh shemecha v'kadesh et shimcha lomecha uvishuatecha tarim v'dagbia kaneinu baruch atah Adonai mekadesh et shimcha barabim.
Beginning on page 107, we have an opportunity to study a passage of Torah together. Afterwards, we'll say Kaddish de Rabbanan.
Yehi ratzon milefanecha Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avoteinu Sheibanei Beit HaMikdash b'mei Rabbi Yameinu v'tein chalkeinu b'toratecha v'sham nevotcha be'ir'a kemei olam uv'shanim kodmoniyot.
Kaddish de Rabbanan for mourners and those observing a yortzeit can be found on page 111.
Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah
Amen.
Ve'alma divra kirutei ve'amlik malchutei V'chayechon u'vyemechon u'v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael ba'agala u'vizman kariv ve'imru Amen. Yehei shmei Rabba mevarach le'olam u'lalmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yithalal shemei dekudesha b'richu ve'ela min kol berchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata da'amiran be'alma ve'imru Amen. Al Yisrael ve'al Rabbanan ve'al Talmidei ve'al kol Talmidei Chon ve'al kol man da'askim be'oraita diviatra hadain v'di be'kol atar va'atar yehei lechon u'chon shlama rabba hina v'chizda v'rachamin v'chayin arichin unzona revicha u'forkana mikodam avuhon devishmaya ve'imru Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya V'chaim tovim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru Amen. Osei shalom imromav. Hu barachamav yaseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru. Amen.
Please be seated.
Hayom Yom Shabbat Kodesh.
יום יום שבת קודש,
Mizmor shir liyom haShabbat. Tov lehod olam elazar.
ולזעם אלה שמע ליום נגיד בבוקר החזך, ובקרא בלילות.
Giner vech Adonai. Tzadikat Samar Yifrak. Hojinim b'seifa d'shenim ranim yu lehagid ki yashar Adonai tzuriva lo avlatabo.
We continue on page 120.
Mizmor shir hanukat habayit leDavid.
מזמור שיר חנוך את הבית לדוד,
Haromim
הרומי
Adonai
אדוני
Kinatani v'lo. Haftarah mispid mulekoli patakta saki v'razreni simcha leman yizgav v'lo yidom Adonai Elohai le'olam odecha.
The Mourner's Kaddish for those who are in mourning, page 121.
Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah.
Amen.
Be'alma divra kirute ve'amlik malchute b'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael Ba'agala uvizman kari ve'imru amen. Yehi shmei rabba mevarach le'alam u'almei almaya. Yitbarak v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yitale v'yithalal shemei dekudesha barichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran ve'alma ve'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya. V'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen. Osei shalom b'mromav. Hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru
Amen. Please rise, page 122.
Baruch she'amar v'haya ha'olam. Baruch hu. Baruch osei b'reshit. V'romei ve'osei. Baruch ezer kayem. Baruch atah Adonai melech haolam ha'el ha'avaram v'yamo. Yachid ke ha'olamim melech mushabak v'reat shemo hagadol. Baruch atah Adonai melech mehulal b'tishbacho.
Please be seated.
Hodu l'Adonai ki mishmor. Shiru lo zamru lo shikru lo tavri. Zera Yisrael Dominei Hakol v'Hirav Hu Adonai Eloheinu V'Mishon Tav Zikron. Lo haniach le'ish. Ki kol Elohei ha'amim eleilim v'Adonai shemayim asa. Hod v'ar lefanav oz v'Adonai mishpachot. Yismechu Hashemayim. Raki tov kilom hasdovim v'shin. Romeimu Adonai Eloheinu v'hishachavu l'har kodsho ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu v'hu rachum yakaber v'lo yashchit v'hirba lahashiva po v'kol matzot. Zechor rachamecha Adonai hadodecha. Adonai tzivahot ashrei damotei akbach. Adonai Hoshia melech yenenu v'yom koreinu. Hoshia et amecha uvarech et nachalatecha. Urem, 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 urem v'nasem ad ha'olam. Hoshia et amecha uvarech et nachalatecha. Urem, 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 urem v'nasem ad ha'olam. Nafshenu hiktala Adonai. ואני בחסדך פתחתי הגל בבישועתך. Ashira la Adonai ki gamal alai.
If you're able to do so, please rise. We continue on 132.
Hodu la Adonai ki tov, ki leolam chazdo. Hodu leElohei haElohim, ki leolam hazdo. Hodu la Adonai Adonim, ki leolam hazdo. Leosei orim gedolim, ki leolam hazdo. Et hashemesh lememshelet bayom, ki leolam hazdo. Et hayareach v'kochavim lememshelot balayla. Lemolech amo bamidbar, ki leolam hazdo. Lemake melachim gedolim, ki leolam hazdo. Vayaharog melachim adilim, ki leolam hazdo. Venatan arza lachala, ki leolam hazdo. Nachala leIsrael abdo, ki leolam hazdo. Nai 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 ki leolam hazdo. Noten lechem lechol basar ki leolam hazdo. Hodu le'el hashamayim ki leolam hazdo. Nai 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 ki leolam hazdo.
Please be seated. We continue on 136.
Ashrei yoshvei beitecha od yadelu chasela. Hashem shechalo Hashem shadonai Elohav tehila leDavid. Haromim cha Elohai hamelech v'rashkam l'olam va'ebech l'mevrachecha v'lashem. God dolor l'naim l'me'od v'le'datayim heker dolor l'shem v'me'zidu. Hadar kavod l'kavod zecher. Tov l'nai galkor m'avam asavi d'ufen. Lehel di'eli v'nei ram v'rvotzav v'bod ha'masfuta ma'kutika ma'kutika ma'shoteka ma'rvotzav. Poteach et yedek m'tzadek ma'asaf. Tehilat Adonai deber pi v'varech b'sar Shem kodsho le'olam va'ed. Va'anak nevarech yamei ata ve'ad olam. Hallelujah.
Page 141.
Hallelujah, 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 El Bekodsho, hallelujah, Birkiyahuzo, hallelujah, Bigvurotav, hallelujah, Kirov Kudo. Hallelujah, 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 take a shofar, hallelujah, benevel vechinor, hallelujah, betov umachol, hallelujah, bemeni beyugav, hallelujah, 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 betziltzlei shama, hallelujah, betziltzlei truah, hallelujah, betziltzlei shama, hallelujah, betziltzlei truah, hallelujah, 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 kol hashema tehallelujah. Hallelujah.
Please rise.
Kol Shema Hallelujah. 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 Baruch Adonai Le'olam Amen ve'amen. Baruch Adonai Sheshken Yerushalayim. Hallelujah. Baruch Adonai Elohim Elohei Yisrael Osei nifla levado Uvaruch Shem kevodo le'olam V'malei kevodo et kol haaretz Amen ve'amen ויברך דוד
ויברך דוד כל הקהל ויאמר
Hey Israel, Avinu Me'olam va'ed.
לך אדוני הגידו אתה הוא אדוני האלוהים אשר בחרתם באברהם והוצאתם מרכזים וצאת שמו אברהם ומצאת לבבו נאמן לפניך
וחרותי מואבי
והים בקצה לפניהם ויברו בתוך ביבשה ואת רודפיהם השלכת במסולות כמו אבן במים עזים ויושע אדוני ביום ההוא את ישראל ממצרים וירא ישראל ממצרים לשפת הים וירא ישראל את הגדולה אשר עשה אדוני במצרים ויראו את אדוני ויאמינו באדוני ובמשה עבדו אז ישם משה ובני ישראל את השירה הזאת אדוני במנו השיר אז יבזים רבי ישוע זה נינה ימין חלנה וכוח ימין חלנה מי כמוך באלים אדוני מי כמוך נראה בקודש נורתי לא ספר נחית בחסדך עם זגרעת
144.
עד יעבור ששו כל נשמע מקדש אדוני נאי מלך לעולם ועד ותיקח מרים כי לאדוני המלוך המשב גויים והלמושיעים בהציון לשפוט את הריסיו ויצא לאדוני המלוכה והיה אדוני למלך כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
Please be seated. 145.
Nai 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 ya da 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 ya nai 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 ya nai 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 nishmat kol chai tevarek et shimcha Adonai Eloheinu Baruch kol
basar.
Adonai Eloheinu Shalom Rishonim Yidu Filim Alei Shakai Ein Anakim Sven Lechol Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avoteinu V'derech Shulchan Limi Yisrael Gvot Adonai Eloheinu Nehalelcha unshbechacha unfa'ercha unvraget shem kodeshecha ka'amor leDavid barchi nafshi et Adonai b'kol korovai et shem kodsho ha'el p'tatzu moduzecha gadol b'kvod shemecha hagibor lenetzach v'norah b'norotecha ha'melech ha'yoshev al kisei ram v'nisa Shochen ad marom v'kadosh shemo
Shoken ad marom v'kadosh shemo
v'katuv raneinun tzadikim ba'adonai laisharim navat tehila B'fi yesharim titalal uvdivrei tzadikim titbarach ובלשון חסידים תתרומם, ובקרב קדושים תתקדש, ובמחלות רבבות עמך בית ישראל, ברינה יתפאר שמך, מלכנו בכל דור ודור, שכן כל בת כל היצורים לפניך, אדוני אלוהינו Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avotenu, lehodol, lehalel, leshabeach, lefa'el, leromem, lehader, levarech, lehaleu, lekales, al kol divrei shiro v'tish bechot, David ben Yishai, Avdecha Meshichecha, Yishtabach Shimcha, La'ad Malkeinu Ha'el Melech.
Malkeinu El Melech, HaGadol HaKadosh B'Shamayim V'La'aretz.
Berachot ve'hodaot me'ata ve'ad olam, Baruch ata Adonai, El Melech Gadol v'tishbachot, El ha'odaot Adon ha'niflaot, Haboker b'shirei zimra, Melech El Chei ha'olami.
Please rise, Hatzi Kaddish 148.
Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabba,
Amen.
ve'alma divra kirute ve'amlik malkute v'chayechonu v'mechonu v'chaydechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uvizman kahari ve'imru, Amen. Yehi shemei rabba mevarach, le'alam u'lalmei almaya, yitbarak v'yishtabak v'yitba'ar v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yitale v'yitalal shemei kudusha b'richu, le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amirana be'alma ve'imru Amen. Baruch et Adonai HaMevorach.
לעולם ועד.
Please be seated, 150.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam yisvarech hoshech osei shalom urev.
ובורא את הכל המלך.
Hako yoduka v'kochechu.
אין קדוש כאדוני.
Elokim kadosh Adonai hakol v'sel hayotzer hakol ha'emrotei hakol yom v'ltot. Hamelech Elohei olam. Ein kerechecha ve'ein zuatecha, efet petecha u'mitome lach. Ein kerechecha Adonai Eloheinu ba'olam hazeh, ve'ein zuarcha malkeinu l'chayei ha'olam haba. Efes petecha golenu limot ha'mashiach, ve'ein dome lecha moshienu, litchiyat ha'metim. El Adon HaKol HaMasim Baruch U'Morak B'fi Kol Neshama Kodo V'Tuvo Malei Olam Dad U'Tvuna Solev Imoto Hamid Kayel Chayot HaKodesh V'Nera B'Chavod Al HaMerkava Zechud U'Mishor Livnei Chiso Chesed V'Rachamim Livnei Kevodo Tovim me'orot shebara Eloheinu Yetzaram b'da'at b'avina u'vazkel koach u'gvura natan b'hem liot moshlim b'kerev tevel meleim ziv u'mafikim noga na'e zivam b'chol ha'olam semechim b'tzeitam v'sasim b'voam osim be'em ha'retzon konam Pe'er v'chavod notnin lishmot zehola verina lezecher malkuto kara l'shemesh v'yizrach or ra'ad v'chitkin tzura havana shevach notnim lo kod seva maram tiv eret ugedula Seraphim ve'ofanim ve'hayot hakodesh la'el hashesh v'amlo ma'asim ve'yom hashvi'i te'olam v'yeshem v'kisei kevodo v'roket ha'le'yom ha'menucha Mizmor Shilim HaShabbat Tov lehodol Adonai תתבורק מושיענו על שבק מעשה ידיך ועל מרור שעשית יפרוך הסלע.
153.
תתבורק צורנו מלכנו וגואלנו בורא קדושים ישתבח שמך לעד מלכנו יסר השרתים
אשר משרתיו כולם עומדים.
כולם אהובים, כולם ברורים, כולם גיבורים, וכולם עושים במה ובירא רצון קונם, וכולם פותחים אפיהם דרישה ותורה, בשירה וזמרה, מברכים ושבחים, ומפארים ומעריצים, ומקדישים וממליכים, את שם האל המלך הגדול, הגיבור והנורא הקדוש הוא. וכולם מקבלים עליכם עול מלכות שמיים זה מזה, ונותנים רשות זה לזה, להקדיש רצון ונחת רוח, בשפה וברורה מן הקדושה, כולם כאחד עונים ואומרים ביראה, קדוש קדוש קדוש, אדוני צבאות, מלוא כל הארץ כבודו, ואופנים וחיות הקודש, ברעש גדול מנסים לעומת שרפים, לעומת המשבחים ואומרים, ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו, לאל ברוך נימו איתנו, למלך אדוני זמרות יאמרו. המחדש בטובו בכל יום תאמין מעשה בראשית, כאמור לעושה אורים גדולים, כי לעולם עשתו, אור חדש על ציון תאיר, ונזכה כולנו מהרה לאורו, ברוך אתה אדוני יוצר המאורות. אהבה רבה אהבתנו, אדוני אלוהינו, חמלה גדולה ויתרה עמלת עלינו. אבינו מלכנו, בעבור אבותינו, שבטחו בך, אבינו מלכנו. ותלמדם חוקי חיים, כן תקודנו ולמדנו, אבינו האב הרחמן, המרחם רחם עלינו. ותן בליבנו להבין, להשכיל לשמוע, ללמוד וללמד, לשמוע ולעשות, ולקיים את כל דברי תלמוד תורתך באהבה, והאר עינינו בתורתך, ודבק ליבנו במצוותיך, ויחד לבבינו לאהבה וליראה את שמך, ולא נבוש לעולם ועד, ולא נבוש לעולם ועד, לעולם ועד, כי בשם קודשך הגדול והנורא בטחנו, נגילה ונשמחה, נגילה ונשמחה בישועתך. והביאנו לשלום מארבע כנפות הארץ, ותוליכנו קוממיות לארצנו. כי אל פועל ישועות אתה, ובנו הכרת מכל עם ולשון, וקרבתנו לשמך הגדול, סלע באמת. להודות לך ולייחדך באהבה, ברוך אתה אדוני הבוקר בעמו ישראל באהבה. שמע ישראל Adonai Echad. Ve'ahavta et Melech Be'ad Averim Ha'el Asher Anochi Mitzvah. Ve'im Shemo
156.
Adonai Elohechem emet v'tzivnakom v'kayim.
157.
Ledor vador hu kayim shmo kayam v'kiso nachon malchutzo v'emanato la'ad kayamet la'ad. Embet she'atahu Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu Malkeinu melech avotenu go'al leinu go'el avotenu Yotzenu to Yeshuatenu Ponim matzilenu me'olam shemecha Ein Elohim zulatecha Ezrat avotenu atahu me'olam Menata Adonai
Reish.
Mitzram go atanu na Elohim. Azah shibekurim. Tehilot lelarion baruchum vorak Moshe u'Miriam v'nei Yisrael lecha anu shira b'simcha rabba ve'amru chulam Mi kamocha ba'elim Adonai Mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh Nora tehilot osefele Shira chadasha shiveku geulim Leshimcha sefat hayam Yachad kulam hodu Vehim ligu ve'amru Adonai imloch le'olam va'ed.
Please rise.
Tzur Yisrael kuma be'ezrat Yisrael Uvdekenu mecha Yehuda ve'Yisrael Go aleinu Adonai tzivahot shemo Kedosh Yisrael Baruch atah Adonai Ga'al Yisrael.
Amen. The Shabbat morning Amidah begins on page 159.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzhak, v'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim v'Konei Hakol V'Zocher Chasdei Avot U'Mevi Goel Lifnei V'Nechem Lema'an Shemo Be'ahava Melech Ozer Ufokir Moshiach U'Magen Baruch atah Adonai Magen Abraham Ufoked Sarah Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai Mechayei Meitim Atah Rav Lehoshia Mashiv HaRuach U'Morid HaGashem Mechalkel Chaim Bechesed Mechayei Meitim Berachamim Rabim Someg Noflim Berofei Cholim Umatir Asurim Umekayem Emunato Lishenei Afar Michamocha Baal Gevurot Umidomelach Melech Memit Umekaye Umatzmiach Yeshua V'ne'emarata Lehachayot Meitim Baruch atah Adonai Mechayeh hametim. Nekadesh et shimcha ba'olam Kishem shemakdishim oto b'shmei marom Kakatuv ayen neviecha V'kara ze el ze ve'amar Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh Adonai Tzivaot Melo kol haaretz kevodo. Az b'kol rash gadol adeh v'chazak mashmim kol minasim leumat serafim leumatam baruch yomeru baruch kevod Adonai min komo. ממקומך מלכנו תופיע ותמלוך עלינו כי מחכים אנחנו לך. מתי תמלוך בציון בקרוב בימינו לעולם ועד תשכון. תתגדל ותתקדש בתוך ירושלים עירך לדור ודור ולנצח נצחים ועינינו תראינה מלכותך כדבר האמור בשירי עוזך על ידי דוד משיח צדקך. ימלוך אדוני לעולם אלוהי ציון לדור ודור הללויה לדור ודור נגיד גודלך ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו משלי עולם ועד כי המלך גדול וקדוש אתה ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
Amen. We continue praying the Amidah silently, using the words of the Siddur to guide us or the private meditations of our own heart. For those of you still praying your Amidah, please continue to do so. The rest of us may be seated. Kaddish Shalem is on 167.
יקרא וגרשם מרבה בעמד דברה קריאותי ואמלך מלכותי בחיי חולים ומכון ובחיי כל בית ישראל בעגלה ובזמן קריב ומרו אמן יהי שמי רבה מברך
לעולם ולעולמי עלמיה.
יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ומינעשה ויתהדר ויצענה ויצלח שמי קדושה.
ברכו.
לעילא מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירון מעלמה ואמרו
אמן.
קבץ לתהון ואותהון לכל ישראל קודם בפון ושמיה ואמרו
אמן.
יהי שלום הרוב מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו
אמן.
עושה שלום רומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו
Amen.
Once again, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. It's wonderful to be davening with you, praying with you on this beautiful Shabbat morning. It's wonderful to see your faces again. We're so happy that you're here. We're going to continue our
Wow.
Torah service.
That's super optimistic.
You know, I could have said mean things, but I didn't.
Yeah, right.
We're going to continue our Torah service, page 168. There is no need to rise until the ark is open.
The cost is they have to see our face too.
Right.
That's the cost. אין כמוך ואלוהים אדוני ואין כמעשיך מלכותך מלכות כל עולמים וממשלתך בכל דור ודור אדוני מלך אדוני מלך אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד Adonai oz lilmo yitain Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom av harachamim heitiv avirzon et Zion tivnei homot Yerushalayim tivnei homot Yerushalayim ki v'cha levad batachnu melech el ram v'nisa adon olamim.
Please rise.
Vayehi minso Aaron vayomer Moshe kuma Adonai ve'anutsu oivecha ve'anusu misanecha mifanecha ki mitzion tetzei Torah ki mitzion tetzei Torah udevar Adonai mirushalayim Baruch shenatan Torah Torah Baruch shenatan Torah Torah le'amo Yisrael b'kedushato Baruch shemei d'marei alma. Be'anarachetz ve'lishme kadisha kadisha yakira ana emar tushbechan yehe rahava kodama tetiftach libi be'oraita v'tashli mishalin delibi V'libadecho amak Yisrael v'tavulayim v'lishlam. Amen.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo.
Gadlu l'Adonai Tzion Romema Shemo Yaftav Lecha Adonai V'Hagidula V'Hagivura V'Hasiferet V'Hanetzach V'Hahoreh Ki kol b'shamayim u'va'aretz Ki kol b'shamayim u'va'aretz Lecha Adonai ha'mamlacha Ve'amin na'aseh lechol erosh Romemu Adonai Eloheinu Ve'hishtachavu la'adom raglav kadoshu Romemu Adonai Eloheinu Ve'hishtachavu lehar kodsho Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu Romemu Adonai Eloheinu Ve'hishtachavu La'adom raglav kadoshu Romemu Adonai Eloheinu Ve'hishtachavu lehar kodsho Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu.
Just make sure we have the smart. Got it? Okay, you'll find it eventually. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Just a couple of words about this week's Torah portion. I'm actually very excited because tonight I'm leaving for Israel for a couple of days. And I haven't been in Israel in the last 2.5 years. I've been trying, this trip has been postponed so many times and moved around so many times I cannot even tell you. So one of the things I was thinking about is that being in Israel just before Purim is actually an experience. Because everywhere you go, they're selling these costumes, right? For adults, for children. And of course, if you heard me last night, I'm still traumatized by the experience of my Spider-Man costume not really fitting me. I'm not sure I'm going to find one in Israel that fits me. But the one thing that you do see, that you wouldn't see in any other country in the world, is Jewish costumes. Like, you wouldn't find this in the United States. They sell these little costumes of the garments of the Kohen, of the Kohanim, right? Just like they're described in this Torah portion. So in Purim, you see all of these little children dressed like the Kohen Agadol. It's really incredible because when we read Parashat Tetzaveh and you get the information of everything that goes into making the vestments of the Kohen, you will never see it except for, in print at the back of the Chumash or something like that. But honestly, when you see these little kids with these costumes, you go a little bit like, really? Would we ever want to go back to this? Right? And that it's like a fashion statement all by itself. Because, they have the ephod, and they have the turban, and they have the belt, and everything the Torah spells out in miniature, right? So a couple of years ago, I went into a store and I said, I want to get one like that, but my size. And it's like, we don't make them your size. I said, well, smaller, I'll give it to our counter. They said, we don't make them for adults. And I was like, why don't you make them for adults? So I'm never going to forget this. I'm walking all over there's an industrial area in Talpiot in Jerusalem where they sell all the costumes. And I'm going store by store. And finally I get to a frum guy, really frum guy, says to me, you don't understand, if we sold these for adults, every single Christian that comes to Israel will buy one and will wear it at their church. I said, what are you talking about? Yes, they're obsessed with the vestments and the temple, and they're going to put it on, and they're going to completely defile the costumes. I said, but you make them for children. He says, no, we have to take this seriously. We cannot make them for adults because Christians may wear them. It really reminds me of a joke that I'll tell you later, because I cannot tell it from the bima. But really, there's something about the vestments and the garments of the Kohen. When the Kohen actually wore all of this, and imagine him on Yom Kippur, right? Like the Seder Avodah describes him, putting on the garments, going to the altar, going to the Kodesh HaKodashim. It was like a pageant. It was like there was so much pageantry involved in this. And today, the only thing we get is the description in the Torah. So enjoy it, because actually it's one of the most beautiful Torah portions, not because every single detail is spelled out, to every possible specification, but I think it's beautiful because it really reminds us that God ultimately lives in the details of our lives. We try to look for God in the grandiose moments, but it's in the details that go into everyday life, even in how we get dressed and what we put on, that actually God lives in us. And this is one of the messages of Judaism for all of us. Don't forget about the little details. They're always important. Shabbat Shalom.
Our reading of Tetzaveh begins on page 513, the last paragraph, verse number 19.
הברך המלאכה מוסיף מזכור בתיתנים יצא נפשותינו מן השעות הרעות, בעיקר ביצר על המצויים בכונותנו לפליטת עולמים, בימה למשאלותינו, במידה טובה ישוע ברחמים, ביעזור בגם בשל לכל עוקסים בו ונאמר אמן. הכל אבוגוד עלינו כבוד לתורה, תעמוד נפתלך ואריאל בת אברהם בשרה ראשון, ברוך שנתן תורה מנזל בקדושתו, ואתם מדביקים באדוני אליכם, חיים כולכם היום. Adam's Torah reading power seems to have dissipated with taking the mask off. That's why you should still wear one, Adam.
No, never. This is unbelievable. Wait, here it is. Yeah. That's why it's hard. It's in the middle of the thing. Don't close it.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamvarach.
Baruch HaMorach L'Olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai hamvarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher bakar banu mikol ha'amim v'nata lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen. V'lakachta et ha'ayil ha'sheni. V'samacha haron uvanav et yedehem al rosh ha'ayil. V'shachata ta'ayil. V'lakachta midamo. V'natata al tenuch ozen aharon. V'al tenuch ozen banav hayimanid. V'al bohen yadam hayimanid. V'al bohen raglam hayimanid. V'zarakta et hadam al hamizbeach saviv. V'lakachta min hadam asher al hamizbeach. U'mishemen hamishcha. V'hizeta al aharon v'al bigadav. V'al banav. V'al bigdei banav itoho. V'gadashu v'gadav uvanav. Uvigdei banav itoho.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher nata lanu Torah emet. B'chayei olam batach b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen.
We're now on the main paragraph, the second paragraph rather, on 514, verse 22.
תעמוד ענת בת זבר רבקה שני.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen. V'lakachta min ha'ayil, ha'chelev v'ha'alyav, yet ha'chelev, ha'mechaset ha'kerev, v'eit yoteret ha'kaved, v'eit shtei ha'klayo, v'ha'chelev, asher aleihen, v'eit shok hayamin, ki el miluim hu, v'chikar lechem achat, v'chalat lechem shemen, achat rakik echat, misal hamatzot asher lifnei Adonai, v'samta hakol kapei aharon vel kapei banav, v'heinafta otam tenufa lifnei Adonai, v'lakachta tami adam v'ktoreh hamizbecha al ha'olah l'reach nichoach lifnei Adonai, Ishehu l'Adonai.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet b'chayei olam natan b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. We're now in the middle of page 514, verse 26. Yamod harav.
You don't recognize me without a mask?
Pinchas ben David Shlishi.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך. ברוך המבורך לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר בחר בנו מכל העמים ונתן לנו את תורתו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen.
Amen. V'lakachta et hechazeh me'el hamiluim asher li'aharon v'heinafta oto tenufa lifnei Adonai v'hayalecha lemana v'kidashta et chazeat nufa v'et shok hatruma asher hu nafa asher hu ram me'el hamiluim me'asher li'aharon u'me'asher levanav v'hayal yaharon u'vanal ogolam me'et b'nei Yisrael ki trumahu u'truma yeh me'et b'nei Yisrael mizivchei shamehem trumatam l'Adonai uvigdei hakodesh asher li'aharon yiyu levanav acharav u'mashka bahem u'malei bam et yadam Shivad Yamim Misham HaKohen Tachtaha Mibanav Asher Yavo El Ohel Moed L'Sharet B'Kodesh V'yet Me'el HaMiluim Tikach V'Vishalta B'Saro Makom Kadosh V'Achal Aharon Uvanav B'Sar Ha'ayil V'Elechem Asher Basal Petach Ohel Moed
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת וחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen. Misha Berak Avotenu Avraham Yitzhak v'Yaakov Imotenu Sarah Rivka Rachel Leah Hu Yevarek Harav Pinchas v'David Miriam Ha'omer Ninsoah La'eretz Kodshenu Yehi Ratzon She'eziyah Hazot Techazet Bo Ahavat Eretz Yisrael V'tiyeh Chahavaya Bekor Bracha V'hidhadzkut HaKesher Beino Nevein Am Yisrael Umoresha Yisrael Kemo Shekatuv Yevarechecha Adonai Mitzion Hurei Betuv Yerushalayim Tzedcha L'Shalom Uvaocha L'Shalom V'nomar Amen.
We're going to be on page 515 now, the fourth reading. We're going to go back to the second paragraph, verse 31.
Asher bokar bana mikol hamim v'notan lanu et Torah baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. V'yed el hamiluim tukach uvishalta b'sarov makom kadosh v'achal aharon uvanav v'sar ha'ayil v'lechem asher basal petach ohel moed V'lo tam asher kupar bahem l'malei et yadam l'kadesho tam v'zar lo yachel ki kodesh hem.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emes chayei olam tavis Eloheinu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
We're now on verse 34, the middle of page 515. Ta'amod. Chana bat Chava v'Yosef Chamishi.
Baruch et Adonai Hamborach.
Baruch Hanurach L'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamborach Leolam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol hamim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. V'im yivater mipsar hamiluim umin halechem ad haboker v'sarav tadanotar ba'esh loyachel ki kodeshu v'yasihita li'aharon uvanav kacha kecho asher tiviti otacha shivat yamim t'malei adam Ufar chatatas el hayom al kippurim v'chitei tal hamizbeach v'chapercha alav u'mashachta oto l'kodshaho shivat yamim v'al hamizbeach v'kidashta oto v'haya hamizbeach kodesh kodashim kol hanogea b'mizbeach yikdash.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam notah b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Torah reading.
We're moving along now to our sixth reading, the very bottom line on 515.
Yamod Eliyahu ben Aryeh Shishi.
Baruch et Adonai Hamvarach.
Baruch Hanurach L'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch et Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher b'kar banu mikol ha'amim v'notan lanu et Torato. Baruch et Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. V'zeh asher tasel hamizbeach. Kivasim b'nei shana shnayim layom tamid. Irakebes ha'echad taseh b'boker. V'yed ha'kebes ha'sheni taseh ben ha'arbayim. V'yisaron solet balul b'sheben katit reva hahin v'nesech v'v'it hahin yayin. La'kebes ha'echad. V'yed ha'kebes ha'sheni taseh ben ha'arbayim. Kimin chad ha'boker niskot taseh la l'reach nichoach ishel Adonai. O lata milidorotechem petach ohel moed lifnei Adonai asher yiva'ed lachem shama lidaber elech Hasham v'noadati shama livnei Yisrael v'nikdash bichvodi v'kidashti et ohel moed v'et hamizbeach v'et aron v'yapanav v'kadesh l'chahen li v'shachanti b'toch b'nei Yisrael v'hayiti lahem le'elohim V'yadu ki ani Adonai Elohehem asher hotzeiti otam eretz Mitzrayim l'shochni b'tocham ani Adonai Elohehem.
Baruch et Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher notan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam notah b'tochenu. Baruch et Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
We now enter chapter 30 on page 517.
Yamod Yehiel Meir ben Zevaryeh Shvi.
Baruch
et Adonai Barak. Baruch Adonai Barak Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amin v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Biasita mizbeach miktar ketoret atzei shitim taseoto. Ama arko v'amarach bo ravur yeh v'matayim komato mimenu karnotav. Vitzi pito tozahav tahor et gago v'et kirotav saviv et karnotav. Biasita lo zer zahav saviv. Ushte tabot zahav taselo mitara lizero. Al shte talotav tasel shnei tzidav. V'haya levatim levadim asedoto bahema. V'asitat habadim atzehe shitim. V'tzipita otam zahav. V'natata oto lifnei haparochet. Asher al aron ha'edu lifnei hakaporet. Asher al ha'edud asher iva'ed lecha shama. V'hiktir alav aharon ketoret samim baboker. V'hetivo et hane rot yakti rena. Uvalot aharon et hane rot ben harbayim yakti rena. Ketoret tami lifnei Adonai lidoro techem. Lo talu alav ketoret zarav yola umincha. V'nehesech lo tischu alav. V'chiper aharon al karno tabachat bashana. Midam chatara kippurim. Achat bashana yichaper alav lidorotechem. Kodesh kadashim hu l'Adonai.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam natan b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. We now rise for the chanting of the half Kaddish. Yit gadal v'yit gadash shemei rabba. B'yamad divrach yirutei b'yamlich malchutei b'chayechon uvyomechon
Uchaye Chol Beit Yisrael Bagala Uvizman Karivim Eru Amen Yehi Shmei Rabba Mevarach Le'alam Olam Ne'almaya Yitbarach
Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yipar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shemeda kudashah
Brichu
liyehela min kol birchata v'shirata
Tush Bechata V'nechamata Damiran Be'alma V'meru Amen. You may be seated. At this time in our service, we'll be doing our special Misha Barak for those in our community that need healing. If you'd like to mention a name, please meet me in the center of the sanctuary at this time. Okay, got it.
Our concluding reading has us on the very bottom of page 517, the last line, verse 8.
Yamod harav Yonathan ben Chod maftir.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamavorach.
Baruch Adonai Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Bachar Banu Michol Ha'amim V'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Ata Adonai Notein HaTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Uvha'alot Aharon et Hanerot. Bein ha'arbaim yaktirena ketoretami lifnei Adonai lidorotechem lo talu alav ketoret zara v'ola umincha v'nesech lo tischu alav v'chiper Aharon al karnota b'achat bashana midam chatat kippurim achat bashana yechaper alav lidorotechem kodesh kadashim hu l'Adonai.
Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Natan Lanu Torat Emet V'chayei Olam Nata B'tochenu. Baruch Ata Adonai Notein HaTorah.
Amen. That concludes our Torah reading for this morning as we rise for the raising and binding of our Torah scroll, Yamdu Hagba B'Galil L'Sefer HaTorah.
וזאת התורה אשר שם משה לבני בני ישראל על פי אדוני ביד משה. Let us please be seated. We continue with the chanting of the Haftarah by the prophet Ezekiel, which can be found on page 520.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Really quickly before I read this Haftarah, my son Ezekiel was born last year, and I made a declaration. I said, once he's born, I want to read every Haftarah from the prophet Yehezkel. Now, I don't know if you have ever tried to study Haftarah with a screaming infant in your home. It's not easy. So, once 2022 came, I said, no, we really have to make this happen. And so I chose a Haftarah from Yehezkel, and I looked at the Haftarah, and boy howdy, there are some humdingers in there. Now, what do I mean by that? If you look at the trope, there's what's called a pazer. It looks like a number 4 that has been flipped backwards. And that literally is like a falsetto. Sometimes, most of the time, you usually don't have one of those in a Haftarah. There are 4 in a row, and then I think 2 more. So, question is, really briefly, why did the rabbis put this in? Exactly the reason you might think, to get our attention. This whole Haftarah is about Yehezkel hanging out with a guy. It doesn't say he's an angel. The chapter 40 says he shines like copper. He actually has a measuring tape. He's giving us the measurements for the third temple. So if you hear all of these interesting falsettos, and they're not the best, just forgive me. I'll try to give you a good sermon afterwards, okay? Shabbat Shalom. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Bachar Be'in V'im Tovim Veratza B'divreihem HaNe'emarim Be'emet Baruch Atah Adonai Habocher B'Torah Uv Moshe Ovdo Uv Yisrael Amo Uvin V'yeh HaEmet V'Tzedek Atah Ben Adam Haged et Beit Yisrael et Havait Vayikalemu Me'aonotehem Umadedu et Taknit Ve'im Nikalemu Mechol Asher Asu Tzorat Habayit הבית וגבונתו ומצב ומואב וכל צורותיו ואת כל חוקותיו וכל צורותיו וכל תורותיו הודאותם ובטוב לעיניהם וישמרו את כל צורותו ואת כל חוקותיו ועשו אותם. זאת תורת הבית על ראש ההר, כל גבולו סביב סביב קודש קדשים. הנה זאת תורת הבית, ואלה מידות המזבח במות, אמה אמה ותפק, והק האמה ואמה רוחב, וגבולה אל שופטה סביב זרת האחד, וזה גב המזבח, ומהק הארץ עד העזרה התחתונה 2 אמות, ורוחב אמה 1, ומהעזרה הקטנה עד העזרה הגדולה 400, ורוחב האמה, והאראל 400, ומהאריאל ומעלה הקרנות 4, והאריאל 12 אורך ו12 רוחב, רבוע אל 4 רבעיו, והעזרה 14 אורך ב14 רוחב, אל 4 רבעיה, והגבול סביב אותם 0.5 אמה, וההקלה אמה סביב, ומעלותיהו פנות קדים. ויאמר אלי בן אדם, כוח אמר אדוני אלוהים, אלה חוקות המזבח, ביום העשות להעלות עליו עולה, ולזרוק עליו דם. ונתן אל הכהנים הלוויים, אשר הם מזרע צדוק, הקרובים אלי, נאום אדוני אלוהים לשרתני, פר בן בחר להטת, ולקחת מדמו, ונטע על 4 קרנותיו, אל 4 פינות העזרה, ואל הגבול סביב, והיטית אותו וכיפרתהו, ולקחת את פר אחד אתה, ושרפו במקד הבית מחוץ למקדש. וביום השני תקריב שעיר עזים תמים לקחת, והטעו את המזבח כאשר יטעו בפר, בחלוקתה מחטא, הקריב פר בן בחר תמים, ואיל מן הצאן תמים, והקרבתם לפני אדוני, והשליכו הכהנים עליהם מלך, והעלו אותם עולה לאדוני. 7 ימים תעשה שעיר חטא ליום, ופר מן בקר, ואיל מן הצאן, תממים יעשו. 7 ימים יקברו את המזבח, ותטהרו אותו ומילאו ידיו, ויקלו את הימים, והיה ביום השמיני וחלה יעשו הכהנים על המזבח אל העולתיכם ואת שלמיכם, ורצי אתהם נאום אדוני אלוהים. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, צורך העולמים, צדיק בכל הדורות, האל הנאמן, האומר ועושה, המדבר ומקיים, שכל דבריו אמת וצדק. נאמן אתה הוא אדוני אלוהינו, ונאמנים דבריך, ודבר אחד מדבריך, אך קור לא ישוב ריקם, כי אל מלך נאמן ורחמן אתה, ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הנאמן בכל דבריו, רחם על ציון כי היא בית חיינו, ולעלובת נפש תושיע במקרה בימינו, ברוך אתה אדוני, משיח ציון בבניך. שמחנו אדוני אלוהינו, באליהו הנביא עבדך, ובמלכות בית דוד משיחך, במקרה יבוא יגל ליבנו, על כיסא עולב ישב זר, ולא ינחלו עוד אחרים את כבודו, כי בשם קודשך נשבעת לו, שלא יקווה נאורו לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני מגן דוד. על התורה ועל העבודה ועל הנביאים ועל יום השבת הזה שתת לנו, אדוני אלוהינו, לקדושה וחינוכה, לכבוד ולתפארת. על הכל אדוני אלוהינו, אנחנו מודים לך וברכים אותך, יתברך שמך בפי כל חי, תמיד לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת.
Let us please rise. We're going to continue now on page 177 of our Siddurim with a prayer for our country. And now that we're not wearing masks, I really want to hear you. We had an excuse before, okay? I couldn't see you move your lips. Now we really have to pray all together, because if you're not praying, we can tell. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Okay, page 177. Our God and God of our ancestors, with mercy accept our prayer on behalf of our country and its government. Pour out your blessing upon this land, upon its inhabitants, upon its leaders, its judges, officers, and officials who faithfully devote themselves to the needs of the public. Help them understand the rules of justice you have decreed, so that peace and security, happiness and freedom will never depart from our land. Adonai, God whose spirit is in all creatures, we pray that your spirit be awakened within all the inhabitants of our land. Uproot from our hearts hatred and malice, jealousy and strife, plant love and companionship, peace and friendship among the many peoples and faiths who dwell in our nation. Grant us the knowledge to judge justly, the wisdom to act with compassion, and the understanding and courage to root out poverty from our land. May it be your will that our land be a blessing to all who dwell on earth, and may you cause all peoples to dwell in friendship and freedom. Speedily fulfill the vision of your prophets. Nation shall not leap of sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. For all of them, from the least of them to the greatest, shall know me. And let us say,
Amen.
Amen. Page 178, a prayer for the state of Israel. Avinu Sheva Shamayim, Sur Israel vegoalo, Barech et Medinat Israel, Reshit Smichat Geulatenu. Hagen alea ve'avrat chazecha, ufros alea sukat shlomecha. ושלח אורך ועמדך לראשיה, שריה ויועציה. ותקנם ועצה טובה מלפניך. חזק את ידי מגני ארץ קודשנו, והנחילם אלוהינו ישועה, ועטרת ניצחון תעטרם, ונתת שלום בארץ, ושמחת עולם ליושביה, ונאמר אמן. We continue praying Ashrei on page 181. We may be seated.
Ashrei Yoshvei Veitecha, Od Yechalelecha Selah.
Ashrei Ha'amshecha Lo, Ashrei Ha'amshecha Eloham.
Techila leDavid, Aral Mimcha Elochaicha Melech, Va'avarcha Shimcha Leolam Va'ed.
בכל יום אברכך, וללה שמך לעולם ועד.
Gadol Adonai Ucholo Me'od, V'ligdulato Ein Heker.
Dor
דור לדור ישבח מעשיך,
ugvrotecha yagidu.
Hadar Kavod Chodecha, V'divrei Niflotecha Asicha.
Ve'zuz nortecha yomeru,
ודולתך
udulaftecha
ספרנה.
Zecher Rav Tucha Yabiu, V'tzidkatcha Yaranenu.
Hanun v'rachum Adonai,
ארך אפיים וגדול חסד.
Tov Adonai Lakol, V'rachamav Akol Ma'asav.
yodu chaneko ma'asecha,
וחסידיך
v'chasidecha
ירחוך.
Kavod Malchutecha Yomeru, Ugvuratcha Yadaberu.
Lehodia livnei hadam gevurotav, ugvod hadar malchuto.
Malchutecha Malchut Kol Olamim, Umemshaltecha Bechol Dor Vador.
So make Adonai
לכל
l'chol
הכנופים,
hanoflim,
וזוקף
v'zokev
לכל
l'chol
הכפופים.
Einei Kol Elecha Yasad Beru, V'ata Noten Lachem Et Ochlam Beito.
פותח את ידיך, ומשביע לכל חי רצון.
Zadik Adonai Bechol Derachav, V'chasid Bechol Ma'asav.
Karov Adonai
מה לכל קוראיו,
l'chol
לכל אשר יקראו באמת.
Reitzon Yerayav Asecha,
Yeah,
Ve'et Shabbatam Yishmah Ve'yoshiem.
שומר אדוני את כל אוהביו, ואת כל הרשעים ישמיד.
Techila Adonai Yedaberpi, Ve'virech Kol Basar Shem Kodsho Leolam Va'ed.
ואנחנו נברך יה, מעתה ועד עולם. הללויה. Page 183.
Yehallelu et Shem Adonai, ki nizgav Shema levado. Hodo al eretz v'shamayim, vayarem keren le'amo. Tehila lechol chasidav, livnei Yisrael am karovo.
Hallelujah, hallelujah.
Mizmor leDavid, havu l'Adonai b'nelim, havu l'Adonai kavod va'oz, havu l'Adonai kevod shemo, yishachavu l'Adonai beharat kodesh, kol Adonai ahamayim, el hakavod hirim Adonai al mayim rabim, kol Adonai ba'koach,
כל אדוני בהדר, כל אדוני שובר ארזים,
וישבר אדוני
את ארזי הלבנון.
וירקידם כמו עגל לבנו וציון, כמו בן ראמים. כל אדוני חוצת להבות אש,
כל אדוני יכיל מדבר,
יכיל אדוני מדבר קדש, כל אדוני יכולי היעלות, ויחשוף יערות, ובכלו כולו מרכבות. אדוני למבול ישב, וישב אדוני מלך לעולם. אדוני עוז לעמו ייתן, אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום, ובנוחו יאמר.
Hashivenu Adonai Elecha Nashuva Kadesh Yameinu Kekedem. Please be seated.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. One of the really cool and yet challenging parts of my job is trying to make our beautiful Jewish tradition relevant to our children here in the synagogue and in the religious school. And I can tell you with all sincerity that I really try to find ways to connect the themes and the ideas from the Torah into a way that our kids can understand, in a way that they can take ownership of and be proud of. This is probably harder than you might think, because there are some really interesting things that ancient Israelites did. I mean, there's animal sacrifices, ritual objects, temple, tabernacle worship. These are all things that a normal person might find intriguing, some might find a little odd, but to a child, it can be especially foreign. So I try to introduce them to all of these topics in a space where they can ask questions, but I also try to make these items tangible so that they really are alive and they're relevant when the kids come to interact with them. I want to give you a little example of what I mean by this so we can do a little show and tell project this morning. This is a craft project that the kids in our religious school made on Monday night. It's supposed to be a priestly breastplate, straight from our Torah portion, Tetzaveh. It's called a Hoshen, and you can see that this is literally an egg carton cut in half, and we took these little jewels and we pasted them on top using Elmer's glue. Now, obviously, the real Hoshen was not made out of an egg carton. It was supposed to be made out of gold. It had a variety of other threads and other fabrics on it. And the gems that were on the initial Hoshen are actually supposed to correspond to the 12 tribes of Israel. So I gave the kids a chart with the correct names and gems from the tribe of Israel, and they did their best to paste them onto this egg carton here. And now we have it. We have a Hoshen made out of egg crates. Now, according to our Parsha that we read earlier, the breastplate that the Kohen Gadol wore was supposed to have some sort of pockets or pouch inside of it. Maybe it was inside, maybe it was behind it somewhere, and it was supposed to hold what's called the Urim and the Tumim. Now, what exactly is an Urim and Tumim? Well, when I told you earlier that ancient Israelites had very interesting customs, very kind of, some might even say odd, these things are very interesting. Let's begin by stating we don't know, we archaeologists, scholars, we don't know what the words Urim and Tumim actually mean. There are theories, possibly they mean lights and perfections, but we are unsure. Likewise, we're not really sure what the Urim and the Tumim actually look like. If you read our Parsha, there's not really a description of them. Were they crystals? Were they simply stones? Were they made out of metal? Were they made out of parchment? We don't exactly know. All we know about them is from our Parsha today and later in the book of Samuel, and we're told that these objects are used to get divine answers. Supposedly, the high priest could consult these devices and receive a heavenly response. You remember when you were a kid, you had a magic 8-ball, and you say, "Does Sally have a crush on me?" And you would shake it, and it just said no, or was that just me? Think of that. Think of this as like a heavenly 8-ball that you could get answers from God from. Now, when I was planning this, I knew that I wanted to have the kids make this breastplate. And I also wanted them to make an Urim and a Thummim of some kind. So I started doing research into what these things could have looked like, or what they possibly might have looked like. And folks, the internet is just an amazing and really weird place. Don't ask me how, but once I started this journey, I ended up somehow on a Mormon website that supposedly had pictures of these items. And I kept reading. It was like a train wreck. I couldn't stop looking. It gets stranger and yet more fascinating. And it turns out that according to Latter-day Saint theology, Joseph Smith, who is the founder of the LDS movement, claims that he had an Urim and a Thummim. In fact, he found these items, conveniently, buried on a hill next to his house in western New York. He found all of these items in a box with golden plates that contained ancient writing. And by using the Urim and the Thummim, he was able to translate these golden plates, and thus he wrote the Book of Mormon. Mazel tov, Mr. Smith. Now, when Joseph Smith needed help, he would ask for assistance from the angel Moroni, who we are told was a Native American and was descended from Jews that fled ancient Israel, built boats, and sailed to America. Yes, this is actual Mormon theology. Now, I am not here to make a dig on other people's religion because, to quote Rabbi Goodman all the time, "Jonathan, do you see what we look like when we wear tefillin?" I was thinking about all the things that I needed to buy to make this breastplate. And I decided that for the altar part, I could make like an altar out of fig Newtons and animal crackers. So I went to Walmart to buy all of these supplies. All the while, I couldn't shake the Urim and the Thummim and Joseph Smith and the Native American angel. And so I go and buy all of this stuff, and I'm checking out, self-checkout at Walmart, beep, beep, and I look up, and what do I see? Two gentlemen with white short-sleeve shirts, ties, big name tags. "Hello, my name is Elder Johnson." And I looked up to the sky and I winked because God truly has a sense of humor. I have questions about the Parsha, and God sends me some Mormons. Now, allow me to give a brief aside for a moment. I know many of you probably find Mormon missionaries a little annoying. I actually have a soft spot in my heart for LDS people. Maybe it's because of their commitment. I mean, it will be 113 degrees outside, and I see them just riding their bikes around Summerlin, just smiling, so happy. Maybe because it's that they're always so very nice. My wife's extended family are Mormons, and I have to tell you, they are absolutely wonderful to us. They support us. They babysit our kids. They went to my ordination when I became a rabbi, and the only thing that we cannot do in their house is drink coffee because LDS members don't use caffeine. Well, one time we were staying at their house in San Diego. This is when my first son was tiny baby. I was so tired. He kept crying all night. We were exhausted, and we woke up, and I told Genevieve, I said, "Look, I'm going to have to go run out and get a Starbucks and sneak it back into our room. I am dying." And she looked at me and said, "Jonathan, you will not bring Mormon Trafe into this house." All right, so back to Walmart. I'm at Walmart. I see these two LDS guys, and I've just got to talk to them. I've got to talk to them. So I did. I introduced myself as a rabbi, and I told them about the project I was doing, and I couldn't tell if they were freaked out that a random Jew was talking to them, or that they were so very excited because nobody ever approaches them to talk about the Bible. But folks, it made their day, it made their week, it made their year. We talked for a while. They showed me some very interesting pictures of their temple and this museum that they have in Utah. They showed me simple stones that they were taught were the Urim, actually called the Urim and Thummim. And when I got back to the shul after this experience, I ended up having the kids make what looked like a cube out of paper, and it just says yes or no, like a dice that you could toss. Because despite the unconvincing photos that the elders showed me, no one is really familiar with what these things actually look like or how they operated. And that night, while the kids were making their projects, I kept thinking about what one of the Mormon missionaries told me before we parted ways. He said, "Rabbi, although we don't know how these sacred objects work, one day when the Messiah arrives, we will know." And friends, when he said that, I got chill bumps on my arms, because if you read the Jewish commentary from our Parsha, from the sages, they say basically the same thing. They say, we don't know what these objects are, but when Mashiach arrives, we will know. So, dear friends, allow me to say the following. When he said that in that moment, I realized that our Torah is more powerful than we are actually aware of. There is something about our sacred text that radiates. It extends beyond our reach, and it has influenced countless other religions and traditions. Every one of those movements are trying to tap into the relationship that the Jews have with the divine. So that being said, we truly are Or LeGoyim, a light unto the nations. Now, don't get me wrong. Please listen to this part. I don't think that those other traditions and religions are correct. I think they are, in fact, dead wrong in their analysis of our sacred text. And obviously, their Messiah is very different than what our will be. So please don't come out of here and become a Mormon or anything else. But that being said, there is something very charming, in my opinion, about the fact that these objects that we talked about in our Torah, their Torah portion this morning, they are still relevant. They are still meaningful to many people throughout the world. I mean, they inspired a random conversation between a rabbi and two Mormon missionaries at a Walmart in Las Vegas. So perhaps we will never understand what these sacred items actually were or how they were supposed to function. But they certainly live again by the way we talk about them, study them, and make egg carton crafts with them. They are important because we make them important. So in conclusion, I just want to say that if you would like to talk with me more about this, please don't feel like we have to meet up at Walmart's. I will in fact be at Kiddush afterwards drinking a Mormon cup of Treif coffee. Shabbat Shalom. Now you really want to go to Israel.
No, this is why we don't sell the customs to adults in Israel.
That's right.
Right? No, only you enjoy meeting the missionaries.
I love it.
And they have a blonde Messiah, by the way. Their Messiah is blonde. That's the first difference. But now I have to tell a story. About 15 years ago, Saturday morning, it's about missionaries, 8:30 in the morning, there's a ring on my bell in my house. I go down in my pajamas. It's 7:30. I open the door, and there's this guy dressed like a priest. And says, "Good morning, Brother Felipe Goodman." This is a true story. I was like, "Who are you?" He says, "I'm here from your local Jehovah's Witnesses kingdom. We got your email. I'm here to help you." I said, "Excuse me, what are you talking about?" He says, you sent us an email that you needed to be saved, that you found the Lord. I said, I think you got the wrong person. No, here's your email. So I see the email, and it's kind of like my address, a little bit different. And I said, it was, by the way, a week before Purim. I said, are you sure I wrote this? Well, I'm not going to make it up. Like, please, are you not going to invite me to come in and tell you about the Lord? And I said, no, I'm not going to invite you to come in. So like, you saw that big temple, that synagogue you passed on your way here? I'm the rabbi there. I'm not planning on leaving anytime soon. I'm not joining any other religion. The guy gets all upset. He starts like almost swearing at me, gets in his car, slams the door, and drives away. Liz like, what just happened? I said, I have no idea. They came to recruit me from the Jehovah's Witnesses. After Shabbat, I get a call from my friend Jacob Herber. He says, how do you like the Jehovah's Witnesses missionary? I said, like, what do you mean? He says, I sent him to you. It's Purim. Be happy. So, this was, in rabbinical school, we used to prank each other before Purim like you have no idea. This was really the ultimate prank. It was unbelievable. So I just see missionaries and I run the other way.
All right, so Purim is coming, and I know some Mormon missionaries who
Do
would
not
love to
send them to me. Do not. I am not into getting my own planet and blonde Jesus or anything like that. Ding dong. You know, no way. I love the Book of Mormon, though.
Yeah.
My name is Elder Smith. Okay. See what you start? Now I'm going to be able to stop.
Maybe we could go bike riding with them. I don't know.
No. No. Oh, my God.
He's so ready for Israel.
By the way, you know, they closed the Mormon Center in Israel. It's closed again. Because they caught them trying to convert people again. So they're very nice to us. But if they convert one of us, they get 1,000 points. So we have to be very careful. Okay, now we're ready. Let us please rise. Page 184. Chatzi Kaddish for Musaf. I apologize. Jonathan made me digress.
Yitkadal v'yikadash Shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Ve'amad divra kirutei ve'amlik malchutei. V'chayechon v'mechon v'chay l'chol beit Yisrael. Ba'gala u'vizman kariv. Ve'imru Amen. Yehei Shemei Rabbah mevarach. Ve'alam ulal me'al maya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yirma v'naseh v'yidhadar v'yitzaleh v'yitzhalal shemei l'kudusha b'richu ve'ein la min kol berkata v'shirata tush berkata v'nechamata da'amirat me'alma ve'imru Amen.
We continue with the Musaf Hamidah for Shabbat, beginning on page 185. Just joking. I love you.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avoteinu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzhak v'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim v'Konei Hakol v'Zocher Chasdei Avot Umevi Goel Ivnei v'Nechem L'ma'an Shemo be'ahava Melech Ozer Ufoked Moshiach Umagen Baruch atah Adonai Magen Avraham Ufoked Sarah Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai Mechayim Meitim Ata Rav Le'Hoshia Mashiv HaRuach Umarid HaGashem Mechakel Chaim Bechesed Mechayim Meitim Berachamim Rabim Somech Noflim Berofech Olim Umatir Asurim Umekayem Emunato Lishenei Afar Michamocha Baal Gevurot Umido Melach Melech Memit Umechayeh Umatzmiach Yeshua V'ne'eman Ata Lechachayot Meitim Baruch atah Adonai Mechayeh HaMeitim.
אמן על יצחק ונקדישה שוסף הקודש המקדישים שמך בקודש ככתוב על יד אביך וכרז אל זה ואמר
נעריצך ונקדישך כסוד שיח שרפי קודש המקדישים שמך בקודש ככתוב על יד נביאך וכרז אל זה ואמר קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות מלוא כל הארץ כבודו
כבודו מלא עולם בשעות השני
כבודו מלא עולם משרתיו שואלים זה לזה איה מקום כבודו לאומתם ברוך יאמרו לאומתם ברוך יאמרו ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו ממקומו הוא יפן ברחמים ויחונם המייחדים שמו ערב הבוקר בכל יום תמיד המים באהבה שמה אומרים שמה ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד הוא אלוהינו הוא אבינו הוא מלכנו הוא מושיענו והוא ישמיענו ברחמיו שני לעיני כל חי לי 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 להיות לכם לאלוהים
אני אדוני אלוהיכם
ובדברי קודשך כתוב לאמור
ימלוך אדוני לעולם אלוהי ציון
לדור ודור
הללויה
לדור ודור נגיגו אליך ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש בשבחך אלוהינו מפינו מושלי עולם ועד כי המלך גדול וקדוש אתה ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש
אמן יהי רצון ויום השבת If you finish praying the Amidah, please be seated. We continue with Kaddish Shalem, page 203. Amen. Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabba Mevorach, Le'alam Le'olmei Almaya, Yitbarach,
Vishtabach Vitpa'ar, from Aminaseh Vithadar, Vitalim Vitalam Shemini Gudisha.
Brechu,
Elamin Kobragata Vishirata, Tushbechata, Venechamata, Davinamel Mavimru.
Amen.
Titkabat, Slotahonova, Utahonako Israel, Kodama Honavishemaya Vimru. Amen. Yehesh Lamra Vishemaya, Vechaim Alinavea, Kol Yisrael Vimru.
Amen.
Oh, say Shalom Bimromav. Uya say Shalom Aleinu.
Ve'al Kol Yisrael, Ve'imru, Ve'imru, Amen. Ein Keloheinu, page 204.
Ein Keloheinu, Ein Kadonenu, Ein Kemalkeinu, Ein Kemoshienu, Mi Keloheinu, Mi Kadonenu, Mi Kemalkeinu, Mi Kemoshienu, No de Eloheinu, No de Ladonenu, No de Lemalkeinu, No de Lemoshienu, Baruch Eloheinu,
Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu. Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu, Atahu Shetiru Avoteinu, Lefanecha et Ketoret Asamim. Let us please rise for Aleinu, page 205.
Aleinu l'shabeach ladon hakol, latekedu laleot seboreshit, shelo asanu k'yei haratzod, velo samanu k'mishpechot hadama, shelo sam chelkenu kachem, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים מודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא, שנותן שמיים ויוצר הארץ, שמיים שמיים וזולתו, ככתוב בתורה. על כן נקווה לך אלוהינו וזכר. הכיר את הישרתיו. ככתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו echad.
Please be seated, mourners and those serving your side. Please remain standing for the mourners' Kaddish, page 207.
Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Ve'alma divra kirutei ve'amlik malchutei. V'chayechon u'vyamechon u'v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael. Ba'agala u'vizman kariv ve'imru amen.
Yehi Shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam le'olmei almaya.
Yitbarak v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yithalal shemei dekudisha b'richu. Le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Osei shalom b'romav hu yasei shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen.
I'd like to call upon Ronnie Levin, the member of our board of directors, for the announcements.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you to Rabbi Goodman, Rabbi Hodson, and DJ for leading us in the services this morning. Join us tomorrow at 9 and Monday through Friday at 7:30 for Morning Minyan. Tomorrow is the Worldwide Wrap. If you've wanted to learn about tefillin and how to wrap it, come learn in the Steinberg Chapel at 9:30 following Morning Minyan. Our Rated Torah with Rabbi Felipe Goodman and Rabbi Rona Matlow will explore texts that seem controversial but are rewarding when studied with passion and insight. The Rabbi's Tish will be on Saturday, February 26th, following services. Torah Fund Brunch honoring Brenda Katz, Flora Mason, Lillian Radomski, and Faye Steinberg will be on Saturday, February 27th at 10:30. RSVP to Melanie Greenberg. Purim Carnival will be on Sunday, March 13th from 11 to 3. There will be carnival games, obstacle courses, jump houses, cirque performers, a raffle, and more. Benefits will go to USY for youth programming. Superhero Megillah will be on March 16th. More information from come, especially if Spider-Man will show up. Following services, please join us in the large social hall for Kiddush. If you know a temple member who's in the hospital, ill at home, or in a nursing home, please contact the temple office to let us know. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, Ronnie. We're going to conclude our service with Elon Olam on page 211, followed by Kiddush.
Yishikoyak to Gavin and to Jacob for leading us in services this morning. Over the next few months, you're going to see a lot more B'nai Mitzvah students coming up to practice on the Bima as their bar mitzvahs get closer. So thank you for supporting them as they're up here.
I'd like to invite all children to join us on the Bima for Kiddush. If you'd like to come up, that'll be great.
Adon Olam Asher Malach B'terem Kol Yitzir Nivra Ve'nasa Ve'efsor Kol Azai Melech Shemo Nigra Ve'acharei Kol Levado Yimlok Nora Ve'hu Haya Ve'hu Hove Ve'hu Yeh B'tifara Ve'hu Echad Ve'en Sheni להמשיל לו להעבירה בלי ראשית, בלי תכלית, ולא העוז והמשרה, והוא אלי וחי גואלי, וצור חבלי בצרה, וניסי ומנוסי, מנת כוסי ביום אקרא, בידו אבקיד רוחי, והייתי שן והעירה,
ואם רוחי גוויעתי, אדוני לי ולא יירא.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל הוציא לעולם, כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת באי נפש. כן ברך אדוני יום השבת וקדשהו, ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, בורא פורי הגפן.
אמן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, המוציא לחם מן הארץ. אדוני יעש לעמו ייתן, אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום, שבת שלום ומבורך.
Shabbat shalom.
Hold on. Yeah, I just don't want to cut. Of course, give me some. Just cutting, okay, guys?